It's a Health Friday conversation. Now we'll be discussing dealing with sickle cell anemia. That's dealing with sickle cell anemia. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. So we're joined by two guests, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Good morning, ladies.
Morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Karibuni sana to the show.
Asante.
One of you is Selina Ogweno. And which one is that one? It is you.
Yes.
And the other one?
I'm Donna.
Donna.
Achieng.
Donna Achieng.
Yes.
Karibuni sana.
Thank you.
Selina is the CEO of Children Sickle Cell Foundation. And Donna, you are?
I am a sickle cell warrior.
Sickle Cell Warrior.
Yes.
Karibuni sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
It's good to have this conversation. Every Friday we have a health-related conversation. And today we want to focus on sickle cell and understanding sickle cell. To welcome you both to the show, C.T. Muga has the day's proverb.
I do. Every week we have a proverb, or we have proverbs that are derived from a particular country. Now, this week they are from Sudan, not Southern Sudan. I have been corrected. Sudan, and it's not Northern Sudan. Sudan. Okay? Which the Arabs of old referred to as the country of black people. That's where the name Sudan came from. Now, when you live with Arabs, same Arabs I've just mentioned, either you do what they do or you move away. That is a proverb.
When you live with Arabs, either do what they do or you move away.
But you know, as I was saying this, you know what came to mind? Now, what if the Arabs live with you?
What if they live with you?
Yes, they found you. They've come to live with you.
Yeah.
So, do you live like them or do they live like you?
What's the difference
leave your house?
between when you go to Rome, do as the Romans do?
Yeah.
There's a difference in this. If I go to Rome, I'm the one who's gone to Rome. So this one, we are saying,
Romans come
when you live with the Arabs, I'm asking, when the Arabs come to live with you, okay, now, when the Romans come to live with you, let me turn around. Should the Romans do?
They do as you do.
Yeah.
They do as you do. I don't think so. People who are used to people doing what they do,
It's difficult for them to.
it's very difficult for them to do what other people do. They'll come and continue doing what they like doing.
Yeah, and ask you to do what they do.
And yes, in your own country.
These Romans.
So I get your message. We are supposed to do what you people are doing. Eh?
Yes, exactly.
It's loud and clear.
Actually, no. We are going to ask you your interpretation of this proverb. Clearly, you've given us your interpretation, but now give it a little thought. What do you think this proverb meant? Or what does it mean to you? How does it resonate with you?
It's as good as do not disturb.
Hey!
More direct like that. Do not disturb. Get it. Us, what do you think? What's your interpretation of this?
From my perspective, I think for us, all of us as human beings, for us to be at par. There's no way I can go to the Arabs and I start doing the things I'm used to, and then they come to my place and they do the things I'm used to. I think it's just a matter of us being at par, doing the things so that we are at the same level. That is, yes,
I'm sure push for equity.
yes.
Sawa kabisa. Now, introduce us to this organization, Selina Ogweno, CEO, Children Sickle Cell Foundation.
Oh, yeah. Children's Sickle Cell Foundation is an organization that was started in 2001 and actually started with parents coming together and asking themselves, what is sickle cell? How does it present? How do we take care of our children? What are these myths and misconceptions? There's quite a lot of stigma around it, and many families have gotten to lose their loved ones because of sickle cell. So when it was formed, a number of parents came together, and then there was our patron, Dr. Casey Wafula, who was also championing this and trying to educate the parents on how best they can take care of their children. So when the foundation was formed, it was formed as a support group, just to help people understand what is sickle cell, how does one get it, and how does one manage it, and how do you cope with it, and what do you do, especially in this society where there's a lot of stigma around it.
Would you say that stigma is as a result of ignorance?
Yes, it is. High ignorance, not just ignorance.
Oh dear. We even categorize ignorance.
This goes into high, not just that you.
It's not just
it's
low,
just
ordinary, garden variety ignorance. No. They're card-carrying stuff.
Top level ignorance. But then when you talk about sickle cell, and so we can then define how people are ignorant of it. What is sickle cell?
Sickle cell is a genetic disorder that one inherits from both parents. So it's not a condition where you say it's the father who gave the child sickle cell or it's communicable. It's a genetic disorder that affects the blood gene. So everyone has two blood genes, one from the dad and one from the mom. And unfortunately for people with sickle cell, they have two abnormal blood genes, meaning that for me to get a child with sickle cell, I have to have gotten this child. I am a carrier, and the father is either a carrier or somebody living with sickle cell. So what happens is the probability, that math of probability of you getting a child. My firstborn actually inherited the sickle gene, the abnormal gene from me, and also the other abnormal gene from the dad. So that's how he ended up with two abnormal genes, which are now the sickle cell gene.
Okay.
And that's how one gets sickle cell. Of course, carriers can also get children who are normal, because a child can also inherit a normal gene from the dad and a normal gene from the mom.
What is normal and what is abnormal?
Okay. The normal gene is where the red blood cells, the gene helps in the production of the red blood cells. The red blood cells takes about 4 months in the body. That's 120 days. Now, for people living with sickle cell, it's believed that the blood gene mutated as a result of resistance to malaria. That is history. I cannot prove it, but it's something in the space like that. So what happens is that the red blood cell now got a deformity where it takes a shorter time in the body. And the shorter time is between 10 to 20 days. The red blood cell then shrinks and becomes a sickle shape or crescent shape. And that's how the name sickle cell anemia was derived. So when it becomes that crescent shape, it's not useful to the body. So what happens is that it also becomes a problem, because for it to move through the blood vessels, it causes a lot of damage. There's pain, there's a lot of infection also experienced. Of course, definitely anemia, which is the biggest problem, and many other things that are not helpful for the body. So somebody who has two abnormal genes produces blood, and their blood does not take the time it should take in the body, meaning
So
that
it doesn't take the 120 days.
so their development is kind of slowed, and they have a lot of health challenges. Yes.
Tell us what. It sounds strange as a question, but because you've said that, it is hereditary,
Yes.
right? 100%.
Yes.
What guarantees that a child will have sickle cell? What must the parents carry, and in what degrees, to guarantee that this child will not be a carrier, but will have the disease?
Because we are talking of probability, probability is a very difficult thing to predict, meaning that for every child you get, there's that probability. So 25% chance, or 1 in 4, that child could have sickle cell. 25% chance the child could be normal, no traces of sickle cell. 50% chance the child could be a carrier. So for somebody like me and my husband, for every child we get, those are the 4 probabilities we look per child. So my firstborn inherited the abnormal gene from me and the dad, and therefore he has sickle cell. So he has 2 abnormal genes. The secondborn inherited 1 normal gene and 1 abnormal gene, so he's a carrier. The thirdborn could either be sickle cell, could be a carrier, could be normal. So for every child, it's that probability, and that's why you find many people who have that knowledge slow down on the process. Unless now I get a child with somebody else, which I wouldn't recommend here, who does not have the gene, then that would break the cycle. But that's not the solution to it.
However, you must, in order for you, pairing up with somebody else to see a child getting sickle cell, one of you or both of you must be a carrier of the abnormal gene.
Yes, both of you must have the abnormal gene.
Okay.
Oh, for the carrier? For carrier,
For you
You
to
must
pass
be
it on
for
to
you
a
to pass
child.
it on to a child.
Yes, yes.
You
Yes.
must be a carrier of the abnormal gene.
Both of you.
Yes.
Both of you.
Both of you.
One
Right.
person.
No. Like, for me, I'm a carrier. And I believe that my father was the carrier. My mother, we tested, she's normal. She has 2 normal genes.
Okay.
And I inherited 1 normal gene from my mother and 1 abnormal gene from my dad.
Yes.
So my father did not make me have sickle cell.
No.
I'm just a carrier.
Yeah.
So I carry the gene, but I'm healthy. I can do everything. You can see me. I look very good.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, and I don't have any problems. So I can do sports.
Right.
I'm not limited to anything.
Sure.
But then now my son is unfortunate because he's limited to quite a lot of things because of the anemia.
Okay. Sorry, I want to. It's technical, it's scientific.
Yes.
But I come from a country whereby it has become almost government mandated for you to check your status before you even get married and think about having children. Now, if you know, looking at Kenya now, looking at some of the numbers, we're looking at in some parts of the country, 1 out of every 4 children born is born with sickle cell.
Yeah.
21,000 children every year in Kenya are born with sickle cell. There was a story that was carried in our dailies just a few weeks ago, whereby the acting director for medical services was saying, perhaps it's time to think about looking at our genes before we pair up.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to start to think about that? Because a lot of us get into these unions, as it were, without this knowledge, and children, unfortunately, I mean, it's not
Very
damning,
sad.
it's not judging, but it's lack of knowledge.
That's very true. Actually, if where we are seated here, only the 2 of us, I'm sure, know about our sickle cell status.
3.
Yeah.
Oh, you also know?
Yeah.
That's very good.
Mandated Nigeria.
But yes, it's something very important. But then you look at how sickle cell is spread in this country, and you find that it's also slightly different from what Nigeria experiences. The malaria endemic areas are where you find the higher prevalence.
Yeah.
And then there's also high migration now towards the urban setup. So you find Nairobi also has a big number. But then that does not mean that if you go to the central and the Rift Valley and the eastern part of this country, you will not find sickle cell. You will find them, but the percentage is quite low. So this is where you even walk into facilities and a clinician may not understand what a child is going through.
Yeah.
They may start from something else as they narrow to that, and they may not even get proper diagnosis. One of the things that I'm happy about is that the government right now is taking up sickle cell on a first-hand basis. Sickle cell, as you know, is more than 100 years since it was documented. But it's one of the diseases that has not been given focus or the focus it needs. Unfortunately, and I'm happy that today we are here with Donna, many of these children don't see their 5th birthday. Simply because the anemia is just too much on them, and that's the time the child is also trying to develop the immunity. So you're fighting many things at the same time, and you find that we lose these children quite early. Today we are in a place where we can actually change our policies and say there are many things we can do. And just on World Sickle Cell Day, which was on the 19th of June, we were fortunate that the newborn screening program is being introduced into this country, and the Ministry of Health had launched it. And there's a guideline for it now. Now, with this newborn screening, hopefully we will be able to tell early these children who are likely to have sickle cell and the ones who have to be given early intervention. That said, it is important to educate the community about sickle cell, because we can go and say don't marry a carrier, that, but ignorance again,
You
I
don't know
told you
what
there
it
has
is.
to be a level where you reduce the ignorance level. So you find that if I was told this about 20 years ago not to marry the man I've married, I think I would have caused drama. And today there are many other girls who are ready to cause drama if they are stopped from marrying who they want to marry.
Yeah.
So it's about education first. And education is the first thing that we have to start with. We have to use all mediums to spread the news that there's sickle cell anemia, and this is how you get it, and these are the complications, and these are the problems that you're likely to face.
Yeah.
A place like Nigeria is fortunate because a higher population has sickle cell. And therefore, when you talk sickle cell, almost everybody relates to it. There are parts of this country that you talk about sickle cell and people look at you like, what are you talking about? So, education. And then, how many carriers do we have in this country? We still don't have that.
We don't know.
Why?
No, we don't.
Why don't we know?
Exactly. Please ask it loudly.
I mean, why don't we know? I mean, we know HIV prevalence because we test
Exactly.
for it. We know the number of pregnancies we have in this country. We know so many things. We even know the number of thieves we have in the country. How is it that we do not know the number
The
of
problem is
people
we've been targeting the disease from a lower level, not the higher level, where the root is the carriers. Because for any person to get sickle cell, you must have two people come together and get a child with sickle cell. Had we identified carriers a long time ago, maybe today this story would have been a different story.
How easy is it to identify a carrier?
Oh, very good question. How do we identify carriers? Most of these facilities should be able to tell if you have sickle cell gene. The only problem we have in this country is to even diagnose sickle cell is so expensive. I tell you, it's one of those conditions that you're born with and you start with the highest bills. There's no way you're going to pay any small bill. Diagnosis itself, not readily available everywhere, especially the areas which are largely affected. We have 18 counties out of 47 in this country that are highly affected. But when you ask how many of these counties have diagnosis machines, you'll be shocked. It's not there. So we cannot readily diagnose. And we also need to have a place where people can just go for reference. Sickle cell is given many names. You know, for me to make it look nice, I wouldn't want to say my child has sickle cell. I say, oh no,
Child is anemic now.
Yeah, my child is anemic. Or, you know, the mother, I don't know what she did. Something happened in their home. They don't get healthy children. Or it's the father's fault. The father did that. So we try to sugarcoat it. And that's how come we don't have the right statistics. So I think it's about time we just got bold and said this sickle cell.
Open up this conversation and talk about it openly. Before we take a break, I want to bring you, Donna, into the conversation. So Donna Achieng is a sickle cell warrior, right?
Yes.
What does that mean and what's your story?
Okay, my name, as you've been told, I'm Donna Achieng. I'm 35, turning 36. I'm a mother to one 8-year-old girl. So basically, I was diagnosed with sickle cell. Okay, in most cases, you're diagnosed when you're a few months old, but mine came when I was in Form 1, around 16 years old. So basically, my parents never knew anything about me having sickle cell because I was healthy. I was running, doing sports, doing everything. The only thing I had was yellow eyes. And back then, when you had yellow eyes, taken to the hospital, you are told, give her carrots and glucose, her eyes will clear up, yeah? So because I was healthy, I was not sick. So you see that even the doctors never thought to investigate further. I think there was a time my classmates were used to complain that my eyes were light green. They became light green, not even yellow. But the doctors were like, just give her carrots, she'll be okay. You know, carrots are good for the eyes. I was okay. So they never took a step to know why. Yeah. So when I'm in Form 1, I think I collapsed in school. I was in Western Province. Then I was referred to Kisumu. Kisumu also, I was just taken round, and then I was told to go to Aga Khan. That's where I became tested and they knew I had sickle cell. At first, I was being asked by people, where did you get the disease from? It's not in our family. Or is it, okay, by that time, it found my parents had passed. So people are like, okay, I used to stay with my father's relatives. So they were like, most of them, they used to ask me, I think you got it from your mother's side because it's not, kwetu hakuna. Yeah, kwetu hakuna. But from my research, I came to okay, first of all, I was told you have sickle cell. I was like, what is that? The only thing the doctors told us, you'll be taking meds for the rest of your life. You see, they never expounded.
They didn't tell you what sickle cell
What is sickle? Because even my relatives, my uncles who I was living with, ugonjwa umetoa wapi? Where did you get this disease from? Because they also don't know what sickle cell is. You see, so from then on, I didn't take it lightly. I didn't assume it was a very serious condition. I just knew I was going to take meds for the rest of my life. Then I
At that
finished.
point, by the time you're moving, you're being referred from facility to facility to the private facility where you were diagnosed. Had you collapsed again?
No.
What was your health like?
I was okay, quite fine.
Huh?
The only thing which maybe could have shown also I had sickle cell, like Selina had mentioned, we always have like a stunted growth. Like basically people can't assume that I am 35 years old. Yes, even if I walk outside there, somebody tells me, you can wear a high school's uniform and you go back to high school. You can just fit in quite well. When I walk with my daughter, she's almost my height. People assume that we are sisters, you see. So throughout high school, I was also okay. I think the first pain episode I ever had was after high school. After high school.
What happened?
I was just in Nairobi walking around Uhuru Park. Then I started feeling pain, but I didn't know. I was never even told about a crisis. I didn't know a crisis. And I thought maybe do you know that feeling of maybe you've been sitting long, or maybe you sat on your leg or your hands and then you start feeling, yeah, those ones. So that's the feeling I had. After some time, I told my friend, no, I think we've been walking for so long, let's go back. I was in college, I was in Ngara. So I walked from town to Ngara because it's near. On reaching the hostels, I said, let me rest a bit. It was in 2008. When I'm sleeping, the feeling was becoming too much. I said, let me just sit. So sitting, worse. It starts from the smallest of your joints, even these ones, then it starts spreading to every joint from top to bottom. So I think
every joint is paining.
Yes. From the smallest to any joint in your body, it starts aching. So 3 hours later, I was taken to a small clinic around the area. Then the nurse was about to inject me with pain meds. But before she did that, I thank her for that. She asked, one of my friends was the only one who knew I had sickle cell, because I had explained to her, does this lady have any condition? They told her, I have sickle cell. So she said, I cannot do anything for you. The only thing I can do for you is request an ambulance or a taxi to take you to Kenyatta. And in Kenyatta is where I got the best attention, though I stayed there for almost like a month or two. That was my first and the longest stay in hospital. But after that, I haven't had a very major crisis. Okay, we call the pains a sickle cell crisis. Yes.
What actually happens when you undergo this pain? Yes, the manifestation is the joints aching and then it spreads.
Okay.
But what actually is happening?
What's causing that pain?
Okay, the simplest way I can explain, like when you have normal red blood cells, they are mostly shaped round and they're smooth and they're like flexible. They can go through blood vessels very easily. So for my case, I have sickled shape red blood cells. You see that shape,
like a crescent.
So in their case, they are very rigid. And they're very rigid. So when they try to pass through blood vessels, at times they'll pass, but at times they can try and pass and then they get stuck. So when the more they try to pass there, the more they get stuck. They cause a blockage.
A stampede.
Yes. So when they cause a blockage, that point of which there's a blockage from the sickle cell red blood cells, that place starts experiencing pain. Yes.
And in the crescent shape also, they are rigid, so they also irritate the blood vessel.
Yes.
So you find that somebody who has a painful crisis can quickly also get an infection. You know, her case is quite unique because many parents who have children with sickle cell go through a lot more. We have a facility where I've seen children who are under 10 years who have had stroke. Stroke injuries where this child is not
stroke.
You were born fine. The next thing you know, you can't move anymore. We've seen people who have other injuries, like, because of blood is needed for your day-to-day existence.
Yeah.
The lesser the supply, the area tends to get either strained or dies. So we have people who you'll find we have a limp, and that is where now there's the pain on the limb. Those are now complications. But to go through the symptoms, sickle cell presents maybe in the first 6 months. After the first 6 months, the first 6 months are sometimes very easy. After 6 months is when it can be easily diagnosed. Now at that point, some of the signs would be, you see the child's eyes turn yellow. And that could be a sign of sickle cell. Sometimes you're told, it's jaundice, just put them outside when the 10 o'clock sun, it will go. No, should test for sickle cell. Now the children sometimes have swollen, you've left a child in the house, playing, very happy. You come back after maybe an hour, the fingers are swollen and painful. Or the toes are swollen and painful, or on top of the fingers or the toes. That is known scientifically, they call it dactylitis. Now, that is very painful. It's where the blood vessels around that area are very tiny, so those red cells can't move. So in the process, they cause a swelling, which is so painful. And I always tell mothers, don't massage it. Don't take that warm cloth and start pressing it, because it's so African, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a swelling, let's press it, yeah.
Yes.
So the only thing you can do, is plenty of fluids to drink, painkiller, and rush to the nearest hospital. If there's a fever, make sure you go to the hospital immediately, because fever is infection. The other thing is that you'll find a child crying, but you don't know why they're crying.
Especially when they can't speak.
Exactly. It doesn't show. The problem with sickle cell pain, it doesn't show. Like
There's no swelling.
No swelling sometimes. So you're just seeing somebody crying and they're saying the hand is hurting. The next thing they're telling it's here, because it's blood moving. And therefore with that problem, then now that's a crisis. Take that child to the hospital. The other things that you can observe with this child is when this child, today they are fine, tomorrow they are sick. And they're always spiking fevers, which you don't understand. But you were fine a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
That can also be another sign. But anyway, infection is something that needs to be investigated more, so it would not be the first sign of sickle cell. So mine is to tell mothers that at 6 months, when you start seeing those small signs of a child not looking okay, please just ask, can we also just test for sickle cell? It doesn't hurt.
We're talking about sickle cell anemia and getting to understand it. Two people in the studio. Selina Ogweno is the CEO of the Children's Sickle Cell Foundation, and Donna Achieng is a sickle cell warrior. Donna, so you're a mother.
Yes.
And you have sickle cell.
Yes, I do.
What's the status of your child?
She's a carrier. This means that she has only half the gene of sickle cell anemia, and she has the other normal gene from her father. Yes, her father doesn't have any sickle cell trait or any sickle cell genes.
Okay.
And I have the full-blown sickle cell anemia.
So for her, she wouldn't get the symptoms that you get?
Okay, from my interactions, I have friends from all over right now. There are very few cases of people who have the trait who experience the same complications that people with full-blown sickle cell anemia experience. But in most cases, they rarely do have any problems. I think that was the case from my father's side. You see, they were telling me, we don't have this disease in our home. But from my mom's side, I've seen a few cases of sickle cell anemia. But from my father's side, I've not seen. So I think their case was that the carriers were getting married to the normal. The carriers, so it was very hard noticing if there was any diseases in that family.
But the only way that you have full-blown sickle cell is because your mother and your father
were carriers.
Both were carriers.
Yes.
Do you have siblings?
Yes.
Are there any of them who have sickle cell anemia?
No, I'm the only one. My two brothers are normal. Yes.
Something I'd like to ask. Since this disease has to do with the blood, does transfusion help?
Yeah, one of the treatments that is administered, especially during the crisis, is a blood transfusion. Not every time, though, but it also comes as a treatment option, especially when the pain is so much and the patient, then the doctor decides based on what is assessed, he would sometimes recommend blood transfusion. And it works miracles,
It
Yes,
does.
yes.
Permanently so? Or?
No. The thing is that the red blood cell just takes about 4 months in your body and then they get replaced. So you can imagine, even if you get blood transfusion, after 4 months, there's a replacement. And maybe in the transfusion, those blood cells will not also take 4 months in your body. So it's just a temporary measure that helps you just relieve the pain and also just try to keep you going.
Why is it then that as you get older, the episodes of crisis then are less hectic?
I think better habits. It's just all about habits because unfortunately with sickle cell is that a lot has not been said about it. But there's no place where we can say that when you're young it's worse than when you're older. It's the same thing across board. It's just one straight line. So all you have to do is that the habits have to change. Many things have to change in this person's patterns. As you grow older, you get to identify your triggers better than when you're a child. And these are some of the things that kind of frustrate. You can imagine where you find there's a child in school. The child is not feeling well and the teacher is telling them to sit down and don't disturb. The child misses school for even a month and the teacher starts blaming the child for malingering. So sickle cell, one of the interesting things about it is that these people get sick and they get very sick. They get absent from school, but when they come back, they catch up. Workplace is the same thing. When you have somebody with sickle cell, I don't know if your organization has anybody with sickle cell. Sometimes they'll miss work, but it doesn't mean that when they miss work, when they come back, they can't work. They are okay. It's just that at that point they were down. So it's a community thing that I still insist. Awareness has to get to that level where we now understand that there's somebody here with us who has sickle cell, and whenever they need us, we need to support them instead of trying to figure out how they got sick.
What brings about a crisis?
A crisis is brought up by many things. Stress is one of them.
Stress, huh?
Yes.
Extreme temperatures, cold or heat. Dehydration is one of the biggest problems again for crisis. Infection. And then there are many other triggers for a crisis.
I have one weird
Donna, what
one.
are your triggers?
One weird one.
Yes.
When I get overexcited, I can get into so much
Extreme
pain.
mood swings, yeah.
Yes.
Well,
When I'm too happy or
It mirrors
too
stress
afraid. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
because it comes to anxiety.
Yes.
Yes.
So there are many things that there are those triggers that we know, which of course we can talk about, and then there are those that now are personalized. Some people say that, when I eat this, I always find myself in a crisis. Now, those are now different segments of that. But most importantly, the common things that people have to look out for. When a child has sickle cell, they go to school, they must have their water bottle with them every day. Let me repeat. When a child is in school, they must have their water bottle.
so they must
They
keep
have to
constantly
drink water,
hydrate.
constantly hydrate, because as they dehydrate, your blood becomes thick and
Thicker.
sticky. So that now triggers a crisis, because what happens is when it's thick and sticky, it's not flowing the way it's supposed to. So the sickle then now gets stuck properly. It's like a traffic jam. One misbehaves and the rest now go and overlap. And that's where the crisis is triggered.
There's this function that red blood cells have. This one of being the transport, the transported for oxygen.
Yes.
I understand, because oxygen then gets translated and transferred into energy, and I can understand why people who have sickle cell do not have energy sometimes because of that.
Exactly.
Now, water, oxygen. What is the relationship?
Water is just to supplement in the viscosity of the blood.
Yes.
Because when your blood is thick, especially when
The
I
movement
prick you
becomes
right
difficult.
now, and then you bleed, it will get a bit sticky.
It coagulates.
Yes. So now that's what's happening inside. Like your blood is now becoming thicker, and therefore it's not able to move properly. So when you continue hydrating, that fluidity, English is
Yes.
diluted.
Correct. Good English.
Yeah.
Carry on.
It's restricted. So you find that this person now gets tired. This person now looks sickly. They don't have the energy you're talking about because there's no proper circulation. And that's when now you prepare yourself.
Crisis is coming.
Crisis. And in schools, we have to make sure these children, when you drink a lot of fluids, you also have to go to the toilet. Now you can imagine when a child is drinking a lot of fluid and then you're told you only go to the toilet during break time. How do you manage that? So sometimes it robs them their self-esteem.
Absolutely.
The child is there thinking, how do I tell my teacher?
I need to go.
Now, today's curriculum is a bit, let me use the most polite. The curriculum is stressful. You find a child with sickle cell, goes to school at 5 o'clock in the morning and is expected to leave the school at 8 because you're preparing for an exam.
Yeah.
I think that's not helpful. This child, by the time they reach 5 o'clock, they are not thinking. They are only thinking of how can I get rest. So sometimes you think you're giving them more by making them leave school late, but you're actually just reducing the value. Give them time to rest.
Stressing.
Give them time to just regenerate and come back fresh. So we have curriculums that are stressful for these people, and they are forced to now compete in the same space with a child who is considered quote-unquote normal. Stress levels are high. This child is always ill, and then the teacher will say, this child doesn't like school.
Your organization, if I may ask, how does it work with the ministry? How does it work with schools so that, how does it work with training institutions so that people who want to become teachers and who are teachers are actually, when in that process, I'm speaking myself as an educator, how are they informed so that when they're in the process of actually teaching, tutoring, passing on knowledge, they take into consideration these unique circumstances that some of the learners find themselves in?
One of the things is that we are trying to collaborate very closely with schools because, of course, that's where our kids spend most of their time. And one of the collaborations, of course, is through the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and therefore we tend to look at the curriculum and see where we fit, where we can go and create awareness in those spaces. But most importantly, when they come to our clinic, because there's a clinic we have in Madare, and then there's one in Kasarani and another in Athi River. When they come to the clinic, one of the things we give them is a letter that explains clearly what this kid has and what they need to do in the event that they get unwell or they need help. And this has really helped also in just creating awareness. To the level, I wouldn't say it's to a higher level. We still need more collaborations. And then, of course, with the new curricula coming in, CBC and all that, demanding a lot, and then COVID, it kind of slowed us down in terms of school awareness. And therefore, what other forums do we use? We use public spaces, we use the clinics, we visit a few teachers here and there and just be able to talk about sickle cell. The one thing that I'll tell you in this country is sickle cell is easily forgotten. Today we are here in Spice FM. I'll tell you, if I come back another 3 months, people will be like, what is that? And yet, we talked about it. So the one thing that we should maybe focus on is how do we not get forgotten? Do we have to cause a sin? And
Yes.
what kind of a sin is this?
Yes.
We start from here then.
Yes.
So that people never forget us. You tell a teacher very well, this child has this problem. They take care of that child, the child leaves. The next child who comes in, they can't
start from
remember.
the beginning.
You start from scratch. So how is it that this can be put in the curriculum of teachers where they take care of children with chronic illnesses? You know, it's not only sickle cell. There are those who are diabetic. There are those who have other conditions. How can this be part of the curriculum of teachers in schools? And I'm speaking now to the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, asking them, can we have something? Can we have a moment where Selina can walk into a teaching college and says, today we are talking about sickle cell from a caregiver's point of view, and the teachers are able to understand, because I think that practicality needs to be gotten. We have mothers who have more than one child with sickle cell. I tell you, it's mayhem.
What?
They can't afford medication, they can't afford. The children are missing schools in turns. It's like a musical chair.
This one starts, another one starts.
And it becomes crazy. Now you're dealing with a parent who is already so drained, but the teacher is demanding, the community is demanding, the family is demanding, other people in the family.
What are these demands, Selina? Just tell us your story.
Okay.
Because you have a child who is full-blown sickle cell anemic. What is it that you go through as a caregiver?
As a caregiver, one of the challenges you get is that you can easily ignore other children or other members of the family. Simply because, and I look at a situation where a mother has spent maybe a week in hospital with a child. When she comes from that hospital, she's not ready to socialize. She just wants to rest. But when she's just about to start resting, the same child gets sick again. So you're on your way back to the hospital. And then you have a husband to take care of. Or rather to, not take care of, to relate to. You have children around here who need you as a mother.
Yeah.
You have the community who expect you to participate, because there are those things like chamas that you now even pull yourself out of.
Yeah.
But when you need help, you need the community. So they'll say, but she never participates in our events. So those are the small demands that we have that tend to rob somebody their peace. A person living with sickle cell, on the other hand, brilliant, finishes school, goes to university, not even a college, university, and then is denied an opportunity of a job because of their health. How do you help that? Oh, you'll always be sick. We don't want that kind of drama.
Yeah.
So you find that in this space of sickle cell, it's one of those things that you feel they are complaining, but they are not. They are trying to tell you, please,
Just
we
listen.
are here. Listen. Yeah. But no, they rarely complain. Some of them are introverts. Some of them are beaten to their problem that they are quiet. And we don't want them to be quiet. Selina is loud. But how many Selinas do we have there?
Not many.
We need warriors to come out and just say, you know what, enough is enough.
As you conclude, Selina, people are asking how can they help your foundation, the Children's Sickle Cell Foundation?
Fantastic. The first thing about help is, one of the things I always say is, let's create awareness. Because you've heard us in this studio today, please go tell someone and another one about sickle cell. Let's start from there. The other way of helping is that we have facilities across the country that have people who need medication, people who just need to be attended to, people who've developed complications. And these are people whom you don't necessarily have to support them through us. You can actually just tell me, I'd like to support one person, and I'll be able to direct you to one person who needs help. And that is one of the ways in which we can change these lives, where somebody just needs, for a normal person to go through a regular checkup, today goes between 6 is too low, from 10,000 to 15. That's a checkup in a facility where I'm just going to do my lab test, because they have to do the lab test, they have to come out with medication for the month, they have to see a doctor to tell them they're okay. So between 10 to 15K. Adopt one person and just say, I'll take care of this person's health for the next 1 year or few months, and make them now feel better.
Walk the journey with them.
Yes, walk the journey with them. The other thing is that let's be kind.
Do you have a website?
Yes, we do.
What's the website?
Children's Sickle Cell Foundation.
childrensicklecell.foundation. You want more information, please go there, childrensicklecell.foundation. Selina Ogweno is the CEO of the Children's Sickle Cell Foundation, and Donna Achieng, Sickle Cell Warrior. They've been our guests this morning, creating awareness on sickle cell anemia. We'll call you again, because we must keep talking about this to create more awareness, like you've said.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation this week. Have a lovely weekend.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.